Let's talk about those housing prices and how it affects everyday Aussies, mate.
Before we start, we need to tell you up front we are not a licensed financial planning, accounting or law firm. This is simply an education program which will give you factual information. We do not give any general or specific advice around finance, business, investing, options trading or anything else. That is not what this presentation does. Please see a licensed financial planner when it comes to any investment advice you need.
Now, we've got some other subjects to talk about today, and I want to talk a little bit about housing policy, okay? Because this is something that's dominating Australian life to such a big degree. I can vouch for that.
Hey, I done well.
All of us can.
I did really well.
Yes, you did. But on that point, you did really well because it was an investment property that you bought well. And so much of what we're talking about
we took absolutely 100% of the motion out, just like what Richie was saying. So just so Richie's got a bit of a background on this one, there's about 2015. I was doing a lot of foreign exchange trading at the time. The banks wouldn't accept my income for funding of the mortgage. So we're like, right, we're $180 a month short. How do we get around this? And so we thought, you know what? Monthly mortgage repayments at the time on $50,000 was only like $50 a week. So I said, right, what's the cheapest house we can find in WA? And a set of duplexes in Gerald came up. They were rat shit. They were terrible. Half the walls were falling in. The doors had been kicked in. And so we got both duplexes for $70,000. Oh. And so the condition of the sale was that the real estate agent had to give us a rental valuation on how much we would get if they were livable. And so we got 180 a week. So obviously they take 70% of that. So that was the required amount that we needed to actually buy the house that we've got in Perth.
Over, right?
So what we did, we just took the motion totally out of it. What do we need to do to achieve our goal? So we kept our eyes on the prize, and worked around it to make sure we could do it.
Well, my couple of points on this is, okay, it's not what you sell things for, it's what you buy them for, and that's very much the case there.
Well, $1 saved is $1 earned.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So that's one part of it. The other part is that, so a lot of people right now are very excited about what they're selling their house. Oh my word, I can get this magic, massive number. Yeah, but okay, you're living in it, all right? Yeah. So when you still have to, you've got to live somewhere, you've got to sleep somewhere, right? So the market might be, numbers might be going up, but when you're moving from one house to another, you're moving sideways in the market, not up. So these numbers look impressive, but you're really not in a better situation. In a lot of the cases, you're actually in a worse situation.
The average house price in Australia at the moment is $959,300. Okay.
Right. Well, that the 300 at the end. Yeah. Okay, that's my budget. So that's how short I am. This is.
I thought you were like 5'6", to be honest.
Excuse me, I'm not 5'6". Where'd you come up with that?
5'5" then.
I'm 5'10". No, actually,
there's no way you're 5'10".
I'm getting the tape measure up
6 inches.
Well, I won't answer that. I'll let that go. Anyway, let's talk about those housing prices and how it affects everyday Aussies, mate.
Well, it's interesting the states that have had the biggest increase quarter on quarter. Western Australia has been massive. It's been about 39.2% in the average house price in the year. Those are big numbers. You're looking at an increase of about 14,300 on capital if you take the average house price across Australia. The cheapest place to live at the moment is Northern Territory. It's in March of 2024. Average house price was 511,400, and this in New South Wales, if you look at the top end, you're looking at to buy an average house. It's not a fancy mansion or anything, but you're looking at 1.2 million.
To get in,
just over 1.2.
To get in
million.
Where?
Sydney.
Yeah.
That's an entry level house.
That's entry level. That's not. What's an average house? Put it that way. It's not a mansion.
No, that's a 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom. 45 minutes away from the city.
I remember. This is 15, 16 years ago roughly. But my brother bought a place in Melbourne, and he paid $360,000 for this house. It was I think a 3x1 kind of little shed out the back, and I'm like, dude. I think they saw you coming, wow, whereas those houses were kind of 200,000 in Perth at the time. You just see this acceleration of pricing, and it's not obviously going with wages. This is the thing. Now you need the same. What you used to be able to buy a house for is now your deposit, right?
And I think that's the biggest issue is how sustainable is it? And
just
I'm
not.
expecting it to cool off. It really depends on how much the government, how many migrants they let into the country.
Yeah, well,
they're
it's a
going to
Labor
have to
government.
do something. It's
and
getting
interest
the end of
rates
the
as
joke.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things. I have to say, Shane Love from the Nationals came up with not a bad policy to scrap or because at the moment, stamp duty capping is only to a certain level, just all of it across the board. Because the speed at which the houses are going, like you'll raise the level of where you're stamp duty free. It's just going to be met within 12 months anyway. So just scrap the whole entire lot for first home owners.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's also got to be a social shift as well. You can't be looking to be buying at your first home within an hour of the city unless you're looking at a unit. Like having
or mum and dad have
acreage.
money.
Yeah. That would get your mum and dad to give you a crap ton of money. But you need to have like a third and a fourth source of income to be able to afford a house. If you're buying your first home to be your forever home.
My advice to people is don't buy, because I think we're such a market now. The dynamics are so different because we've had an uptick in prices, but we've had a combination, obviously, of the influx of migrants, but also COVID and supply chains as well. You've got issues with building materials and then building approvals, which is also feeding into that as well. Obviously, we know about the tax advantages, tax incentives. That's been 2 decades now of building up this market. We're at this point where now something needs to give. The whole system is teetering on a so to get in now would be very scary in my opinion.
Yeah, but the stupid thing is, right, okay, as far as I actually take your point, and I'm on board, to be honest.
It's not sustainable.
No, not at all. But okay, they won't give a loan to someone, won't give a 30-year mortgage to someone because they can't afford, $2,000 a month, but they'll charge them 3,000. That same person's paying 3,000 a month or whatever, whatever the figure, 50% more in the actual rent.
The finance industry is very. So on the rental side of things, there's no real regulations of what you can charge. It's just whatever the market wants to charge, they'll charge. So, but on the finance side of things, because of the Royal Commission to the mortgage industry, a lot of rules and regulations were put in because people want to make sure that the homeowners weren't getting taken advantage of by the banks, they weren't being ripped off. So it became an extremely regulated system.
Okay.
So even though you could be paying $4,000 a month for rent, but even if you can afford that, because you've got to meet certain criteria, like you got to know your customer, where's your income coming from, have you got financials for this? A lot of the income that people like us would actually normally use wouldn't be acceptable as a source of income.
Yeah, that's right.
So things like my foreign exchange trading, which I was doing, wasn't acceptable. My options trading that I'm doing at the moment, unless I've been doing that for like 5 years or so and I can produce reports every single year, not acceptable. We have multiple businesses and we have our income coming through multiple different businesses. We can't get all 5 businesses to be paying like on the loan for a single house. So at the moment, we wouldn't qualify for a mortgage.
Crazy.
So I think we're like with what's going on in the US, we know there's murmurs. I hear a lot of economic pundits talking about a Big Short 2.0 style crash in the US because you've got issues with the real estate commercial market in the US. I've just seen in Manhattan buildings that sold for $800 million in 2006 just sold for $8 million.
Oh no!
Wow. So there's a huge, because obviously COVID, etc. In the US, cities like that are finished in terms of the commercial market. So and there's also
how do you mean though? Explain that further.
Which part?
Like why they're finished in?
There's just no businesses in that.
Well, yeah, they've killed the businesses, and everyone's moved out, and it's just gone to shit.
You see so many businesses that were, for argument's sake, in California have now moved to Florida, particularly, and Texas, right? So you see that big movement, and you're getting that in New York City as well. I guess.
But it's the effect of, because obviously those assets are on the books, so people, they need to have the high price to keep their books up. So you're going to have that cascade effect, and there's talks of it. Some banks will go under as well. So if we get a kind of Big Short or style 2.0 in the US, that'll cascade into Australia. And I think this time we're not going to be immune like we were last time. And that could wipe Aussie housing prices down by 50%, and that would only take us back probably 9 years. Maybe less than that.
The other side of that too is China. China financially is really in a bad space. Now, of course, they buy our dirt. And so if they're not buying our dirt, if there's a downturn there for whatever reason, then that will affect jobs and serviceability on the housing market.
Well, the housing market in China is almost farcical, really. The amount of those empty cities that are doing nothing. And
the Evergrande debacle.
Yeah.
So obviously if they crash in the US, then, they got to dramatically cut rates or yeah, and it's going to have an effect onto Australia, whether they're going to have to go over a whole new round of QE again to try and save the system, which will further, in the interim, you'll have a crash, but then we could have exponential price growth, and that could lead to another phase of, like the last 5 years over again. It's just whether people will believe the whole printing, scenario again, whether that will work this time. It may not work this time.
Sadly, I think it will, because most people just don't think about these things. They really don't. I mean, to me, and I want to make this clear, as far as we look at crashes and the word crash, everybody thinks doom and gloom, whereas we're sitting here and many of us here will think of that as an opportunity. I mean, if you prepare yourself, you're cashed up, so to speak. When these crashes go in, you get in there, you dollar cost average, and you go hard.
Look what Buffett's doing.
But the thing is,
they're trying to cash.
You got to remember, it's not a crash. The Australian market is so overinflated out there. I mean, it's actually just a market correction.
They're not real prices. They're like a Fugazi, Wall Street, the Fugazi prices. It's all made on the margins, right? In areas, and obviously areas specific, depending on how many people, levels of mortgage debt, etc. There's a few pundits out there that do good data on suburb analysis from every area, because obviously real estate prices, we know it's area specific. Not every area is going to crash, because a lot of people don't need to sell. So it's that's the factor as well.
Well, you haven't made a loss until you sell, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah.
So, and the other cool thing is, if you're trying to find a silver lining in this, so one of the leading indicators why we sold Geraldton in the first place was our rates and everything, and the cost to keep the houses up there got really, really bad. So we were losing about 40% of our income from the houses just in land rates. So we went, you know what, stuff it, we're out.
Yeah.
So that's one of the leading indicators why we sold.
This is one of my greatest whinges. Go on.
When the house market comes back down, because a lot of people don't know this, your rates are actually based off the estimated rental value of the house. Correct. So all your rates are don't come back down.
Yep.
So, I'm trying to find a silver lining to a property crash here, but yeah. And then all the millennials might be able to afford a house.
Okay, well,
it just means we'll have to live with it within our means now.
Oh, come on, that's crazy talk, Richie. Come on,
spoke like a true capitalist.